because he first tried to do things the right way through legislation. But Congress won't do it. So I guess my question for you is, what would your plan be for Kamala if not to try to get a law through Congress when Congress won't pass them?
I'm perfectly happy for trying to get a law through Congress, provided I, actually like the law. I mean,
yeah, sure.
But if you're talking about what she could do day one, I mean, she could actually continue to enforce the newfound enthusiasm for border security in the run-up to the election that Joe Biden has now implemented.
Well,
so remain in Mexico,
aside your
revising asylum, and all the rest of that.
Setting aside your characterization,
I mean, that's actually what it is.
How? Sure.
Okay. Remain in Mexico,
which is fraught with rape. Remain in Mexico has been found to be really dangerous for people who are stuck there.
Okay, and it is also a fact of the matter that if you're talking about controlling the border, remain in Mexico is a better way to control the border than simply releasing people into the interior with a come back to court date.
So you feel that that would be better than, say, funding border security and related agencies to house those people safely?
It is generally not a matter of funding at the border. It really is not.
Then what is it?
It is a matter of how asylum is actually interpreted. So the way that asylum was interpreted for a long time was that you had to show by a preponderance of the evidence that you actually had a legitimate asylum claim.
That's not that different now.
And
it's not that different. No.
Yeah.
This claim is over. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. It's getting good though. My next claim is the Israel-Hamas war would not have started under Donald Trump. It's good. This process has gotten more conciliatory over the course of time.
Okay, so what evidence do you have to support that claim?
Okay, so the latest reports from the New York Times of internal papers from Yahya Sinwar suggested that he was essentially counting on Iranian interference and help with the October 7th attacks, and that was incentivized by the fact that Iran was attempting to forestall any sort of deal between Israel and the Saudi government for Saudi to join the Abraham Accords. It was very well known at the time, and I happen to know that the Saudi government was very much ready to join the Abraham Accords if Donald Trump had been reelected. If that had happened, that would have forestalled Hamas action, because the incentive to have done what happened on October 7th would largely have been gone at that point. The entire purpose of that attack was to prevent the formation of a broader Sunni-Israeli alliance in the Middle East.
Do you think the incentive of October 7th was simply Iranian plot?
I think that the Iranians were certainly interested in facilitating the Hamas attacks, and without Iranian support, it would have been very difficult for Hamas.
I want to ask you, do you think that the conditions in Gaza in any way factor into October 7th?
I mean, I think that the conditions in Gaza certainly factor into support for Hamas. As far as the specific attack of October 7th as opposed to rocket attacks, the distinction between, for example, continuous rocket attacks that have been happening since 2006 when Hamas took over the Gaza Strip, and the wide-scale terror assault of October 7th, sort of a difference in kind.
Now, since 2005, what has Israel done to the Gaza Strip to formulate or allow kind of the otherization of the Palestinian people who live in the Gaza Strip?
Well, I mean, in 2006, Hamas took over, promptly killed everybody who's associated with the Palestinian Authority, has never held an election since, and has been running the place with an iron fist.
Now, I want to understand, now, with an iron fist, is Hamas the one who is putting forth the land, sea, and air blockade in the Gaza Strip?
The land, sea, and air blockade is specifically because Hamas is in control of the Gaza Strip.
Now, I'm confused, because if we expect that the October 7th attacks only happened because Iranian influence in the area, I don't see how 17 years of a land, air, sea blockade will happen if that's not a symptom to allowing people basically pressure cook its way into something like that happen.
Okay, the idea that October 7th was specifically as an incident caused by movement between Hamas and Iran and Hezbollah, and coordination between those groups for geopolitical reasons, is the claim. If the claim that you're making is that October 7th was sort of an inevitability based on the conditions on the ground in the Gaza Strip, that's not exactly how I think foreign policy works.
No, I'm saying foreign policy works in the sense that you can't ignore the overlying cause of an issue. So now when we talk about the Abraham Accords, do you not think that the Palestinian people not involved in the Abraham Accords plays any part into the region remaining unstable, specifically with these two groups of people?
The region got specifically much more stable while Donald Trump was president because of the Abraham Accords.
Again, I don't know how you can go and quantify that when the Palestinian people are not involved. 2023 was the deadliest year for Palestinian children on October 6th, according to a UN report published on October 6th. Now, if we go and keep ignoring the Palestinian problem, then I don't understand how we can continue to act like forging partnerships between Gulf Arab countries is going to promote stability to the region when we're leaving out 2 million people in Gaza and then 2 million people in the West.
I mean, it was promoting a lot more stability in the region. I mean, for the Saudis, for the Bahrainis, for the UAE.
And then, October 7th still, you're telling me October 7th still happened because of geopolitical reasons in that area. If the Palestinians are not addressed in the Abraham Accords, Why do you think that there was a need for October 7th to happen?
I mean, the reason October 7th happened was specifically because of the confluence of Palestinian desire to put the issue of Palestinians back on the front pages, and an Iranian desire to use that as a wedge issue to destroy the Abraham Accords.
Front pages as opposed to what? As opposed to it being silenced through political plays under Donald Trump to promote these Abraham Accords that, again, don't achieve the root issue of the problem. The Palestinian people cannot be left out of the table when it comes to resolution or an accord dealing with the conflict.
I mean, okay, so the root issue of which problem?
Of the problem, do you agree with the legal settlements on what
With the illegal settlements? I mean, so it is...
do you consider settlements illegal?
No.
Under international law, it's considered illegal.
That is not true.
I mean, the UN and most international foreign bodies have decided that those settlements are legal. Now, do you think that that's just the case of...
I think the UN is trash. But
so that's what I was going to say, is that if the UN is trash,
yes.
If nobody around this area can be brokered into as a third party, if Israel not allowing third-party investigators to come to the Gaza Strip, who can justify, who can have the moral authority in the region and say that this is what's happened, that this is a reason of this, or that putting them towards the backside of the conflict is this reason? I need to understand from you, what's your prescription for the area, for the Palestinian people? Are you like Ben Gvir, who says that there's three options: willful immigration of the Palestinian people, like leave, live under subjugation as a second-class citizen of Israeli rule, or third, die? What's the option?
No, I mean, moderating and then electing a government that is worthy of actually governing its people and not stealing billions of dollars from its people, either the Palestinian Authority, Islamic Jihad, or Hamas, would be an excellent start.
So I need to understand, do you feel like they have the opportunity to do so when they're under the subjugation of 17 years of a blockade by an occupying power? If for 17 years, since the disengagement of Israeli settlements in the Gaza Strip, Israel was able, by the flick of a switch, to turn off the electricity, water supply, and fuel reserves. Right now, we know that in the north of Gaza, up until today, 2 weeks went by where no humanitarian aid was going in. There is no Rafah border anymore. There is no humanitarian going through there. It's been demolished.
Okay.
And then in the other...
I mean, it's not true that humanitarian aid is not going in. Actually, just a couple of days ago,
just a couple of days ago, because since October 1st, there was no aid going to the northern part of Gaza.
Because there are ongoing anti-terror operations in the north of Gaza.
So does that mean that the civilians who are in the northern Gaza are not subject to humanitarian aid because there's a military action by an occupying force?
It means that there's no actual excellent way of distributing that aid. This has been a major problem with the humanitarian aid throughout. The last time they sent 100 trucks, this is what I was going to mention, they sent 100 trucks of humanitarian aid in just a couple of days ago.
Before October 7th, 500 trucks were needed to sustain life in Gaza. 100 trucks were supposed to say
at least half of the aid is being stolen by Hamas and then resold at higher prices.
I need you to understand that almost every international humanitarian rights group says that this humanitarian crisis is man-made. It is man-made.
I agree that it's man-made.
And I know who you think the man is.
Yes.
I'm telling you, there's only...
It's not Hamas. Wait, does Hamas have any agency here at all?
I'm telling you that right now, if you want fair...
Palestinians have any agency
here at all? The Palestinians absolutely have agency, but again, with an occupying force, what does the agency limit to? If a Gaza fisherman can't go 6 miles past the nautical line that Israel has arbitrarily placed, what agency is there?
Why do you think that Israel placed that line?
Again, that's what I'm telling you, is that how
just
do you
for fun or what? Do you think Israel wants soldiers in the Gaza Strip?
Again, here's the thing. I know that high level cabinet members in the Israeli government right now is saying that we're going to resettle in Gaza. That this is the plan. That we're not going to
position in the Israeli government.
Do you agree with that position?
No, with the resettlement of the Gaza Strip, no.
Okay, so you want the Gaza Strip to remain Palestinian land?
I mean, I'm perfectly happy for it not to remain Israeli land, but that doesn't mean that it can be governed by the current entities the Palestinians are choosing to govern themselves. The last entity they did, Israel pulled down in 2005. A terrorist group now ruled the region and then promptly used it to build kilometers of terror tunnels that outsize the London subway network.
I want you to understand, Ben, that there is no way for any type of democratic institution or process to happen in the Gaza Strip when there's an occupying force who will go and subvert it. If you have Israeli parliament,
they don't have agency.
If you have, I mean, it's hard to when there's an occupying force.
Believe it or not, it actually is not that hard not to vote for terrorists.
It 100%. It's not. It's 100% impossible for you to go and make that distinction when there is no alternative. Right now,
that is not true. There's not an alternative.
No, there is no alternative to life under no occupation for the Gaza Strip. Again, I'm asking you simply, is that right now, if you have Israeli parliament members, Knesset members, who are saying that we plan on resettling Gaza, that this is not Israeli
not a government position.
No, again, these are people who can fracture the government of Israel.
You know, it is a government position. The government of Hamas that is currently holding 100 hostages, including babies. This war would be over today.
And the hostages should be released, and no civilians should be involved in the conflict.
Should Hamas surrender?
So I want to ask you.
Surrender?
I think that there should be no civilians involved in this.
Should Hamas surrender?
Surrender to who?
To the Israeli government.
Will the Israeli government stop bombarding civilians if that is? Because
if Hamas surrenders, yes.
Because right now we saw them march from the north to the south of Gaza, and they said that the whole goal of this war was to what? Was to return the hostages, correct?
There's a dual goal. One was to
dual
destroy
goal.
Hamas,
Now,
and the other was to return the
See, that's the
hostages.
thing. When I come to the table to argue with someone, I want to assume that there's good faith, not that there's a dual goal or dual ambitions in the process.
Of course, there's a dual
Because
goal.
that's
If
right
there were
now.
no hostages, the singular goal would be the destruction of Hamas.
Okay, now understand this. Netanyahu will continue to project this war because he's facing crime and barbarity charges. So there's no. Again, I need to understand, Ben. If
There was a full-on unity government in Israel, including his opposition, until a
and
couple
so
of months
his
ago.
unity government will not let him end this war, except the ceasefire
Unity
deal, because they
government
can
included people
fracture the
like-
government. Yes or no?
No,
Can Ben Gvir, if he decides to call for snap elections, can him and Smotrich not decide that this is what we want to do, and Benjamin Netanyahu is immediately supposed to,
I promise
to
you,
run for prime minister?
If there were snap elections today, Netanyahu, first of all, is leading in the polls. But even if you were not leading in the polls, Benny Gantz, Gadi Eisenkot, Naftali Bennett, people who are actually running in the election against Bibi Netanyahu, would be pursuing extremely similar policies in the Gaza Strip, simply because Israel cannot allow Hamas to continue to govern the Gaza Strip.
Awesome. So then the hostages are placed second to this. So this isn't about. There can't be two
This is-
dual goals.
Of course there can.
How?
Why could there not be two
Because
dual
one of
goals?
these goals is completely antithetical to returning to the last one.
What? How?
Because when you-
in fact, they are deeply connected. If Hamas does not surrender, how are the hostages getting back?
Again, I'm saying because every operation that dealt with returning the hostages involved the death of arguably more civilians
Yeah,
and more
what do
hostages
you
in
want?
the area. Yep.
Good to meet you.
Hey, Ben, nice to meet
How's
you.
it going?
So just returning to the prompt that the war in Gaza wouldn't have started if Trump were president.
Yes.
The reason that I disagree with that so vehemently is just looking at history. I don't think that the bombing of the Beirut embassy would have happened if Jimmy Carter had won in 1980. I don't think that Nixon is responsible for the Six-Day War. For the Yom Kippur War. I don't think that if Dewey had defeated Truman, that Israel wouldn't be independent. Israel is a sovereign state. They make their own decisions based on their own security issues. We're both Jewish men. I think we can both say that Jews are very independent and that we don't need to be told what the U.S. government wants to be able to make our own decisions. So, for all those reasons, again, just looking at the history of the region and how all these other wars developed because of situations on the ground, I just think that it's unfair to say that either political party in the United States is responsible for the war-making policy of the Israeli government, whoever is in charge.
Okay, but we're not discussing whether the war-making policy, which was a response to October 7th. The claim was really whether October 7th would have been launched by Hamas, knowing that Israel has complete military superiority over Hamas, which Hamas must have known. Why that gets launched on October 7th, why that didn't happen, for example, under Donald Trump or any time in the intervening 17 years from when Hamas took over the Gaza Strip. And the rationale that I'm suggesting is that basically the Biden administration came in, they decided to take an antithetical view to the Saudi government, not just the Israeli government. They came in, they were very unfriendly to Saudi Arabia, for example, delisting the Houthis as a terrorist group. They started to draw closer to the Iranians in an attempt to pursue a revision of the JCPOA. They attempted to draw distance between themselves and the Israeli government. Hamas saw this, Hamas and Iran saw this, and they decided that the best way to put pressure on the Abraham Accords more generally and to forestall any prospective peace deal between the Saudis and the Israelis would be to launch the attack right now.
See, and what I would argue is what was much more relevant to the launching of the attack on October 7th was Yahya Sinwar being released by the Israeli government in exchange for the name of the soldier is escaping
Gilad
me.
Shalit.
Gilad Shalit, thank you.
That happened 10 years ago. I mean, that was 2000.
I know, and I think you would acknowledge that the sophistication of this plan would have taken years. I don't think it was planned in relation to anything the U.S. government was doing. Again, I point to all of these other attacks and wars that happened over the year that had nothing to do with who was in power in the White House. It had to do with specific situations between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And I just don't think it's helpful for us to pretend that the U.S. is the determining factor in this war. I think you would agree.
The reason it's helpful, I think, is because when it comes to foreign policy, this goes to sort of a root issue about foreign policy that's rather interesting to discuss, and that is the belief that when the United States draws away from American allies, when the United States draws significant distance with American allies, particularly in regions of the
drawing
world,
away from American allies. That's Trump that did that. He's the one that says NATO's a bad idea and us being allies and having an internationalist foreign policy is a bad
to
thing.
be fair, the actual policy of President Trump, which was to actually increase the amount of funding from each NATO nation into NATO.
No. That was Obama.
No,
that was Obama in
was,
2014.
That was.
Okay. It was.
They increased the amount of defense
Trump
spending
ran on
under
that
NATO.
issue.
Yes, and that was what.
But Obama's the one where the policy was actually implemented.
Well, no, the policy was also
about the 2% goal.
The increase happened
and
under
on top
President
of that, NATO expanded under Biden. So
NATO expanded under Biden as a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. It didn't expand under Biden preemptive to the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
No, I'm not arguing that. But I'm saying if the question is who has been more dedicated to our system of alliances overseas, it's clearly the Democratic Party.
I mean, that is clearly not true. If you're talking about what has effectually made American allies stronger, the answer would not be the policies of the Biden administration. I mean, if we want to talk Ukraine, we can. We can talk about the slow walking of aid to Ukraine throughout the Ukraine war. I'm a big advocate of the idea that the United States actually should have pursued a policy of rushing more aid into Ukraine and then pursuing an off-ramp as soon as possible, sort of Henry Kissinger's suggested policy early on in the war. But if you're talking about...
So then we would agree that it's a mistake for Republican congressional officials in Congress to cut aid to Ukraine. Okay.
Yes. When it comes to the Israel-Gaza war, the Israel-Hamas war, which is what this led off with.
Yeah.
Again, my contention is that the timing was driven specifically by a desperate hope by Hamas and Iran to break the burgeoning Saudi-Israeli and Sunni-Israeli alliance that was happening in the Middle East, and the best way they could see to do that was to launch an attack to bring up the issue that had largely been sidelined by the Abraham Accords, because it turns out that a great way to make a deal between countries that disagree on issue A is to make a deal on issues B,
But
C,
that
and D.
presumes that the Sunni American alliance against the Shia Iranian-backed alliance only started under Trump, and that's just clearly not true. We've been aligned with Sunni-led governments for at least the last 50 years.
The realignment of the Middle East under
The
President
alliance with
Obama.
Saudi Arabia goes back to World War II.
I mean, of course, that's true. It's also true that Barack Obama's distancing from Saudi Arabia in favor of, for example, the JCPOA, which Saudi opposed, so the Israelis, so the Bahraini's, are all countries of the Abraham Accords. And then the return to that ideology under Joe Biden exacerbated potential conflict in the Middle East.
I don't agree with that, but if anybody else wants to go, we don't have a lot of time. Thank you.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing okay, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you. So, I guess my first lead into this question is, can you tell me what did Trump do to potentially prevent this war from happening? What did Biden not do, or what did he fail at that ultimately caused it to happen?
Okay, sure. So the Trump administration, by drawing closer to Saudi Arabia, by attempting to broker the Abraham Accords and successfully doing so with a multiplicity of countries in the region, weakened Iran. He also weakened Iran by keeping massive sanctions in place, which really prevented them from spreading terror in the same sorts of ways that they did under the Obama administration, or the Biden administration as well. The Trump administration was very clearly and obviously pro-Israel in a way that the Biden administration has not been. They've been a little bit more shaded on the issue.
In what ways?
So the United States, for example, acknowledging under Donald Trump that Jerusalem was the capital of Israel, continuation of military aid to Israel without any attempt to condition or slow walk. Joe Biden, from the very beginning of the war, was basically attempting to slow walk or condition aid based on certain things that were happening before. This sort of stuff and the preview of that sort of stuff before October 7th, distance that was drawn between the Israeli government and the American government, leads opponents of Israel to believe that the United States is not going to be in their corner, and that leads to...
Do you think that the United States has, in any way, shape, or form, not shown that they are not in support of Israel? I mean, one of Kamala Harris's talking points that every time she starts with that, she believes that Israel has the right to defend itself.
I mean, so just this week, the Biden administration put forward an open threat to embargo arms to Israel earlier this year.
Because
there was
of
an
why?
actual embargo against Israel.
Because of why?
Well, I mean, they're claiming that it's because of lack of humanitarian aid in the northern Gaza Strip. That can be their claim. I don't actually... okay. Anybody who claims that there's a genocide going on in the Gaza Strip does not understand the definition of the word genocide.
Don't tell me, what's the definition of genocide?
A systematic destruction of every member of a population.
Is Israel a system?
No.
Are they on their way to completing and fulfilling a genocide?
No, there are two
potentially, if they kept on going the same way that they're doing, could they completely eradicate the Gaza Strip?
Israel has the military capacity to do that, and they have certainly not done that. And the reason I can say they have not done that is you know how long it would take them at the current rate to do that, especially given the fact that they are completely targeting terrorists.
Are they completely targeting terrorists? Are children
yes.
terrorists? Are the children the dead babies?
Targeting
the kids?
Civilian collateral damage is not the same thing as targeting civilians.
But is that not a byproduct of genocide?
No, that is not. Genocide is where you systematically destroy a population specifically because you wish to kill the civilian population. That is it.
He's right. That's not very pro-life.
Well, no. It turns out that Hamas is not pro-life when they hide behind children and women.
And neither is Israel when they drop bombs and nukes on Palestinian villages.
Okay.
And
Are you suggesting that Israel is using nuclear weapons?
Is a bomb automatically nuclear?
No, not even remotely.
So that's what I said. A bomb.
and a nuke. Okay. Israel uses as small munitions as possible to target specific terrorists Okay, they do this using drone technology. They have to go through 4 layers of legal before any strike is actually approved by the upper layers of the Israeli government. I've seen this actual process in action. I've seen the actual footage at Palmachim Air Force Base in which Israel goes through the process and shows exactly how they have to go through multiple legal steps in order to green light a hit on a terrorist. And they have they've released footage of this, them calling off particular strikes if they believe that the minimal amount of civilian casualty damage cannot be maintained. So the basic idea, again, what you're talking about here is a population of 2 million Palestinians who are living in the Gaza Strip. Total number of war dead at this point, according to best available statistics, is somewhere between 30,000 and 40,000 dead. That is not a genocide. It is a horrible, horrible war with horrible human casualties. That is not a genocide.
To your definition, which I will have to disagree with, but that brings me to my next question.
Name a war that isn't a genocide by your definition.
One that isn't a genocide?
Yes.
There's plenty of genocides. They've happened.
I mean,
I don't know what your point is.
my point is that you don't seem to be distinguishing between the definition of a war and the definition of a genocide.
Well,
you're saying that if mass casualties happen, it is necessarily a genocide. I'm saying that is not true.
Got you. My next question, do you believe Israel has the right to the...
Well, we're going to solve the Middle East in 56 seconds. Go for it.
Definitely not. My question is, if this were in the context of the United States, if everything were the same conditions of what you see to be terrorism, what you see to be from the Israel side, but it happened in the United States and the innocent civilians that died were United States citizens, would you see the same thing to be justified?
In what? So let's say that the United States had launched an attack across the Mexican border, specifically targeting civilians, slaughtering 1,200 of them, taking 250 hostage. And then the Mexican government had retaliated by attempting to solely target military targets, and our military men and women were hiding behind civilians. That would be the comparable condition.
Yeah, so U.S. citizens would be killed in hospitals and other things.
I would not blame the Mexican government. I would not blame the Mexican government for targeting the personnel who were responsible for the kidnappings and murder.
Do you see it to be ethically justified for them to kill innocent Americans at the same degree that they killed innocent Palestinians?
Again, the question of killing civilians is a question about who's hiding behind the civilians. Israel's not going out of its way to kill civilians.
That's not an answer to the question.
Yes, it is, because you're mischaracterizing the actual situation on the ground.
Oh.
Because of
I
what
said
I
the
just
same
described.
conditions. I said the same conditions.
You come get the reader.
Oh. Yeah, so many friends, so many friends. Let's see. Let's see. I'm being crazy. I want somebody who didn't get like a full time, who had to like. Oh my gosh. I choose Tyler because he's been sitting behind me the whole time, and I feel bad for the dude. He's really wanted to talk, so let's have a conversation.
My claim is that Donald Trump did not commit to a peaceful transfer of power. Okay, so yeah, I think it's simple. I think Trump helped facilitate a fake electric scheme to override the election in 2020, to have Mike Pence not certify the election, and then allowed violence to happen in the Capitol. So Donald Trump gave a speech for an hour and a half where he would say things like, "Fight like hell, they're stealing the country away from us." And then when people got to the Capitol, Donald Trump sat there for 3 hours and watched them. When his aides, his family, and everyone was telling him, put a stop to the violence, call them, tell them to go home. He did not. And I think that is an example of Trump not committing to the peaceful transfer of power. He was allowing the violence to happen when he could have stopped it.
Okay, so as far as allowing the violence to happen when he could have stopped it, no, I'm wondering exactly what he could have done given the fact that the Capitol Police were activated, in fact, pretty quickly in the middle of that debacle. As far as not committing to the peaceful transfer of power, do you mean verbally or in action? So I agree with you verbally. He never suggested that I am going to leave, and then he did. So,
Yeah.
So I'm not sure actually how much we disagree on this matter. I thought that January 6th was terrible. I thought that his behavior between the election of November 2020 and January 6th was bad. I mean, there may be disagreement on the extent to which we believe incitement took place as opposed to bad behavior that raised the temperature that I think was really, really negative. As far as not committing to the peaceful transfer of power, he clearly committed to the extent that he left, right? I mean, Joe Biden has been president for the last 3.5 years, for how much of that he's been mentally aware. But, I'm just wondering what sort of, where do we disagree?
Yeah, well, I'll quote you, right? January 6th was the worst thing to happen since 9/11, right? And I just want to be clear that You agree he
Remember,
verbally did not
patience
want to commit to the peaceful transfer of power.
disappears.
He tried to stop it,
Dark
yet you're
Lady
still
watching
saying
over
that
you.
he should be the president of the United States.
Well, I mean, he did
right?
not-
That is your claim, though. He should be
I'm
the president of the United
listening.
States, and you agree he verbally did
Embrace
not
the
commit to the
shadow.
peaceful transfer of power.
Well, I mean, he did not verbally suggest that there ought to be a violent uprising, revolution, or
So,
military
but
coup.
he also didn't stop it, right? So there were people
Well-
inside the Capitol, and he sat for 3 hours. His closest aides.
He
were
should have
saying,
spoken earlier, I agree with you.
Yes, and they were telling him, like, Trump, you have to do this. You have to stop. He was informed at 2:14 p.m. that they were outside the Capitol saying, "Hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence." His aides went up to him and said, "They are saying this. You need to stop something." What does he do? At like 2:24 p.m., he says, "Mike Pence is a traitor." Right? That was his tweet. Why do you think he would tweet that when he knew the violence was going on? They were saying, "Hang Mike Pence." Mike Pence had to go into hiding. Why do you think he would tweet that at that moment?
I mean, I disagree with him tweeting with that.
I'm not saying you agree with him.
So the question as to why Donald Trump does anything is a matter of, of public speculation.
You're a smart guy. I'm asking for your speculation.
I mean, I don't. If your question to me is whether I think that Donald Trump wanted Mike Pence murdered, I think the answer
no,
is no.
I'm not asking if he wanted him murdered. I'm saying, do you think he wanted the violence to stop?
Do I think he wanted? Yes.
Really? So
Yes.
his idea to stop the violence was saying Mike Pence is a traitor.
I think that he was in control of the forces that he was in control of, and the Capitol Police weren't in control of
exactly.
Nancy
What
Pelosi.
was he? He was the president of the United States.
Right, and the military
And
was
instead of
active.
saying, "Hey, get out," he said, "No, Mike Pence, you're a traitor."
Okay.
Why do you think he would say that at that moment?
Okay, I just expressed to you that I can't see into his
Hello?
head because I have a hard
Yeah,
time.
but you can make a
Do
guess,
not
though, right?
say
Like, you can make
No, but can I ask you why you think he did that?
why do I think
mean, you said that he
because
didn't want to be
so
hung.
this is what I
He
think.
didn't want to be hanged, right?
Yes.
You said that.
Yeah,
So
I
what was
don't
his
think he
motivation?
wanted to bang. I think that Donald Trump was indifferent to what happened in so far the violence Mike Pence. I think he wanted a lot of chaos. He wanted violence to delay the certification of the vote, which he was successful with, in hopes that there would be confusion and someone else might step up, like another senator, so they could allow to put forward the fake electorates. Because that was the plan. That was in Greensboro's plan to do that, and that was the whole idea. So yes, Donald Trump was okay with the violence because he did not want the certification to happen. And in fact, for the first time in American history, he delayed it. And to me, it's like, Ben, I really like you, but I think there's a lot of attributes that I like about you, especially your American values. That is the antithesis of American values. Allowing that to happen, wanting that to happen, and then, yeah.
Okay, so I think that Donald Trump obviously should have done more. I agree with you. He should have
Yeah.
done more on January 6th. I think that, he shouldn't have tweeted that about Mike Pence. I disagree with what he was saying about Mike Pence in the entire electoral scheme between November and January. As far as not committing to the peaceful transfer of power, again, what I will say is that the illegal transfer of power did in fact take place. He did not, in fact, initiate the militia to storm the capital of the United States.
Trump's will.
Okay, but
Right, like that.
I
agree.
I have
It happened because of the guardrails of democracy, but Donald Trump did not want it to stand.
Okay.
Do you agree that Donald Trump did not want that election to be certified?
I mean, sure.
So he did not want the peaceful transfer of power then.
I mean, if the election had not been certified, then there still would have been a legal process that took place, right? I mean, the question as to
you would have
hold on, can I ask the opposite for just a second? So is your contention that Donald Trump actually would have been in favor of, for example, like a military coup
Yes,
to keep himself in power?
I think Donald Trump absolutely would have, and all
I think
evidence,
that's a stretch.
all evidence points that he was trying to find any way he could stay in power.
Okay.
He was, and this is gone.
I think he was trying to find any way to say that he didn't lose. I don't think that he was trying to activate any way that he could stay in power. That's not quite the same thing.
No, him saying that he wasn't trying to lose is different from him sending down fake electorates with fake signatures to fraudulently steal the election.
In order for there to be an insurrection, for example, you have to activate the military. You have to activate the military.
I didn't say an insurrection.
Okay, so again,
All
that's fine.
I'm saying is all of Donald Trump's behavior has suggested he did not commit to this. He did not.
If you're asking me to defend his behavior on January 6th, you'll notice that I really haven't.
you.
Yeah,
So
but I feel
wondering
like
exactly
you're
what
underplaying of how horrible this was.
I mean,
and that's the issue.
which
I
part?
think you're,
Are you talking about the riots? Are you talking
I'm
about
talking
the
about
behavior?
I'm talking about the fake electorate scheme and the idea that and allowing the violence for 3 hours to happen in the Capitol when they were under attack. The senators, the people that we're supposed to protect to uphold our democracy, he was attacking, and he watched it happen on TV when everyone around him was stopping. And I agree that you think that's bad, but you're still saying, you know what, that guy did that. He let our democracy attack. Make him be president.
Well,
that's your position.
Yes, because
Right, that is your position.
Okay.
Yeah, and just so we're
Sure.
clear what the stakes are.
Yes.
This man would want to do it again.
Okay, so let me ask you about that. Can I ask you about that?
Can I quickly say one
Sure,
more
please,
thing?
go ahead.
Yeah. JD Vance has said he would not have certified the election.
Okay, so let me ask you this. You said that he'd want to do it again. Can I ask you how?
I mean, he could do like the exact same scheme with fake electorates, except that this time, you know what, JD Vance would be like, yeah, I'm not certifying the election. What do you mean?
I mean,
all Mike Pence had to do was
But
not.
no. But
Yeah, sorry.
practically speaking,
Yes.
He is currently not in office, correct? He's not the president of the
You
United
want him to
States.
become president. And
Yes.
so I
Yes, I do.
agree. If he's
Okay.
not president, he can't do it.
Correct.
Which is why I don't think anyone
And
should
then-
vote for Donald
so,
Trump.
So wait, so I have a question. Do you believe, this is really the question, because you're talking about he's going to do it again. The only opportunity that he'd have to do it again, presumably, would be if he won and then he were running for, say, a third term.
No, I disagree. I think he can do it for someone else. He might do it for another candidate that he likes. They'll uphold the MAGA values. MAGA has taken over the Republican Party, much to your chagrin. I agree, it's bad, but he absolutely would do that again to someone who's loyal. And JD Vance has said he would not certify the election. I think that's a real threat. And you've already acknowledged that you can't predict Trump. You can't even know why he would think anything.
I find
so
that
how could you say that won't be a threat?
Because I find it highly implausible that Donald Trump is so caring about somebody who's not Donald Trump.
Really? What about Donald Trump Jr.?
You think he's going to do that for Donald Trump Jr.?
I think he'd do it for Donald Trump Jr. I think
Really?
he'd do that for Rasami. I think he would do it for anyone who's loyal to show that they're still upholding the MAGA name and who will want the Democrats to lose.
You're entitled to your opinion on it. I think that's radical catastrophism. I think that
it already happened once, right? You're saying it's radical catastrophism that almost happened once. The only reason
because the conditions are not the same, and it's not possible for them to be the same. Okay, when it comes to the actual election itself, and you say, and you want him to be president.
Hey,
let
how
me
you
be clear
doing?
about my position throughout this election cycle.
Yeah.
When there were primaries, I was not supportive of President Trump in
Be
the primaries.
good.
When it comes down to a binary election, everybody now has a choice. There are only two candidates left. I've made pretty clear, I think, over the course of this debate, a myriad reasons why I don't support Kamala Harris. Okay, now Donald Trump is on the other side. So the question is, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to sit it out? Am I supposed to, like...
I think you're not supposed to vote for the person who you said helped do the act that was the worst act of America since 9/11. Yeah, I don't think you should vote for him.
Okay.
Call me crazy.
Well,
I think that when someone is trying to overthrow the election, you shouldn't vote for him to be president.
Okay.
Is that like such a crazy idea?
I think that the bottom line is that when you're in an election, you vote for the person you think will be the better president for the country. And what I liked about President Trump was his first term, not his activity between November and January. That's the simple answer. You're not going to get me justifying January 6th. You're not going to catch me pretending that I think his activity on January 6th was good. I also think